Starting us off at number 10 is the photo shoot. And I feel like this is scary for the kids involved, but very funny for me to watch. Maybe I'm sadistic like that, but anyway, a few weeks ago, makeup artist Ashley Bull decided to prank her two kids during a Christmas photo shoot. Joey and Emma were all cute, dressed up in their matching PJs, and then all of a sudden, they turn around and see the Grinch just coming out of the trees behind them. Thankfully, Ashley slow-mo videoed the whole thing, and you can see the look of just pure terror on their faces as they're just screaming and running away. It is brilliant. They're so, honestly, I know it's evil, but I would probably do that to my kids as well. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I did laugh so much while watching this, but had I been Gemma or Joey, I would have just shat or peed my pants, or both, probably both. Coming in at number 9 is the Tinder creep. So this one comes from an anonymous person who said last year around Christmas time they matched with a guy that just had a bunch of pictures of the Grinch on his profile. His name was Adam, not the Grinch, thank God, but the profile was still weird. His bio was a quote from the Grinch, and thinking it was a joke or a bit charming, she decided to swipe right. I would never have swiped right, that's just weird, red flags immediately. Anyway, Adam messaged her right away, and the conversation was quite normal at first. He explained how the Grinch was his favorite movie, and that's why his profile was what it was. The girl assumed as much and continued the conversation, but then Adam started sharing how he's always wanted to sleep with a girl wearing the Grinch costume or at least the mask. He then asked if he could call her Martha May going forward, Martha being the name of the Grinch's love interest. She very soon unmatched him, but wow, is that a fetish? Is this a thing? How did I not know this? Wanting to be the Grinch in bed or roleplay as him? I really had no idea. I don't kink shame, but that's weird. At number 8 we have the window. This one comes from 20-year-old Jason, who said this happened to him when he was 11 years old. Now he lived in a small town in Texas where he basically knew everyone in his town, so he never really grew up scared of being out in the streets at night or walking home later than usual. I wish I had that problem. I'm always scared walking at 5 PM home, but that's because I'm a girl. Anyway, his bedroom happened to be on the ground floor of his house and his window overlooked his street. Towards Christmas time back in 2010, he was trying to go to bed one night but heard some noise coming from his window. He looked over to see some branches of a tree rustling but just assumed it was the wind. Jason tried going back to sleep but then heard his window being tampered with. It sounded like someone was trying to open it from the outside. He sat up straight away and saw a tall figure dressed as the Grinch standing right outside his window trying to open the window. As soon as the figure saw Jason, he held up a knife in his hand and started laughing before running off. Jason, freaking the hell out, ran and woke his parents up and they called the police. The culprit was never found, but Jason never watched the movie after that, and he can't even talk about it without having a panic attack. I'm with you there, Jason. If I went through that, I would be exactly like you. Filling at number 7 slot is my experience. So I actually watched the live action movie when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I fully thought it was a horror movie. I was so scared the first time I saw the Grinch in his cave, I actually started crying and begged my sisters to turn it off. In hindsight, I feel like I was maybe mixing up thinking the Grinch was the Grudge and that's why I was so terrified. To make matters worse, my older sister, the more evil one, bought a mask of the Grinch because she's just sadistic like that and just wants to watch the world burn, or at least watch me burn. I used to be really scared of sleeping alone as a kid, so one of my sisters would always have to put me to bed. I know, I'm just a baby. One night, the nicest sister was putting me to bed and the other one snuck into the room, and I was half passed out at this point, so I didn't even hear her come in. I suddenly feel this fur or this piece of hair brush my cheek, and I thought it was my own hair or an ant or something, so I opened my eyes because it startled me, and right in front of my face was her wearing the mask just smiling, and I screamed so loud the neighbors probably thought someone had just gotten murdered in our house. I started crying obviously after that. My sister did not face any repercussions because my parents just laughed at the whole thing. And I was like, okay, we're not going to talk about my trauma then? Alright then. Now at number 6 is the movie adaptation. Now contrary to all the films and cartoons that have been made of Dr. Seuss's books, the man himself actually didn't want his books adapted into films. Throughout his entire career, he was always adamant on not having his characters be taken out of his books. After he died in 1991, all the licensing matters of his works went to his widow, Audrey Giesel, and she was like, well, I'm here as a widow, my husband is dead, let me just turn all of his books into freaking films. And that's basically exactly what she did. kid. Despite his continued reluctance while he was alive, Audrey approved a live-action version of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And to me, that feels like one of those situations where the wife just wants money and just to be set for the rest of her life, so she was like, screw it, let's just do it. Let's not honor the memory of my dead husband. Screw that. Money, cha-ching, let's roll in it. Let's bathe in it. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could do that. A, I'm not married to a genius, and B, I'm not married to a genius. Coming in at number 5 is R-rated. Now I know The Grinch is a very PG movie since it is a kids movie after all, but if we look at the opening scenes of the film, it's not as PG as we first thought. When the baby basket lands outside the house of the two sisters, we see them having their annual holiday get-together. We see baby Grinch looking into the window and the party going down, but is it actually a holiday party? No. It is not. It's actually a party for swingers, so no wonder it took so long for them to realize there was a baby hanging right outside their window. They were very busy. Even the father that sees him for the first time tells his wife that the baby looks just like her boss. Like, what does that even mean? How much interbreeding is going on in Whoville exactly? Maybe that's why the Grinch is so damn grumpy all the time, because the first thing he witnessed in Whoville was a bloody orgy. I'd be too. But on the contrary, some could call that a holiday party. It's subjective after all. At number 4 is The Abuser. Now I had no idea this was a thing, but the newest installment of The Grinch that came out last year is the only Grinch film where the protagonist doesn't abuse his dog Max. In every single Grinch movie, he's either mean to him, throwing him about, or just being full on cruel. Literally the one scene where the Grinch has a breakdown, then comes home to see Max hopping about having some Christmas spirit, literally gets annoyed and throws Max's dog house and him right out the cave. It's not even like he just deposits him nicely outside the entrance of the cave. Like, no, he's throwing that far like he's doing Olympic javelin, for God's sake. Man lives on a mountain. Do you even care where he's landing? You're just throwing it free for all. Like, hello? He's only a dog. He could die. You live on a very high mountain. Are we not going to talk about that? Guess not. Where's Peter when we need them? Filling out number 3 slot is the Tinder Creep Part 2. So this one came from a now deleted Reddit user who said she once matched with a guy on Tinder called Paul. And unlike Adam from number 9, his profile was actually of himself, not of the Grinch, so thank God. But when they started talking, Paul was just very weird. It took the user a while to figure out what he was doing, but then she realized he was only speaking in quotes from the Grinch, but it wasn't even Christmas, it was like July. So she was like, what the hell's this? She asked him if he could just interact with her normally because it just wasn't funny anymore, and then he sent her a picture of him wearing the Grinch costume, saying the Grinch had possessed his soul. Weird flex, but okay. I don't know how the Grinch can possess your soul since he's not real, but okay. Now at number 2 is The Nightmare. Now Jim Carrey is quite the character on camera and off. Despite giving off a jokester over-the-top persona, he was apparently quite a nightmare to work with on The Grinch. Kazuhiro Tsuji, the movie special effects makeup artist, was the one that spent 3 hours per day transforming Jim in and out of The Grinch. But he admitted that Jim was so mean to everyone on set at the start of production that they couldn't even finish. After 2 full weeks of shooting, they only actually finished 3 days of the schedule because he would disappear mid-scene or shoot, come back, and his whole costume would just be ripped apart, so they couldn't even continue shooting. I hate it when actors are so unprofessional like that. Like, what's wrong with you? Is it your privilege to get a part like that? How can you do that? Some people are just divas. You hate to see it. And finally, at number 1 is Therapy. Continuing off point 2, Jim was extremely demanding in the makeup trailer, and every day he'd find something wrong with his makeup. One day he started shouting at Kazuhiro, telling him his chin was a different green from what it was the day before, that he wouldn't shoot unless he fixed it. Kazuhiro had used the exact same color as the day before, but humored him and fixed it. But the job was so draining on the makeup artist that he took a hiatus from the movie altogether, saying he just couldn't work like that. Weeks into his holiday, he got a call from Jim himself asking him to return, that he'd keep his temper in check. And clearly he didn't do that good of a job of that because Kazuhiro needed extensive therapy after working on the film and with Jim. Goddamn. Who would have thought? Starting us off at number 10 is Mass Genocide. I love how we're starting it off with that. So this one links The Grinch with Horton Hears a Who, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just so cute and adorable. In it, Horton the elephant hears a yelp from a dust speck and discovers a civilization of Whos in a little place called Whoville. And as we know, the people in The Grinch are also called Whos, and they live in Whoville too. Connection number 1 established. So in Horton Hears a Who, Horton tries to convince other animals of the Whos' existence, but they just think he's crazy. The mayor kangaroo is about to throw the speck into boiling water, killing them all, but the Whos end up making enough noise to be heard and saved. Woohoo! The Who save the day. Either way, so if we go back to the Grinch, we know the Who's there are noisy all year round, not just around Christmas time, and that's because they don't want to be destroyed or annihilated, so they're loud as hell just because they want to live. So as they get louder around Christmas time because they're happier, the Grinch loses his shit and wants to destroy Christmas for them. And although he succeeds, the Who still gather together to sing, not because they're happy, they're miserable, they just don't want to die. So the Grinch isn't just trying to break their spirit, he's a genocidal maniac. Who would have thought? Coming in at number 9 is cannibalism. So towards the end of the book, when the Christmas spirit of the Who's win over the Grinch and his heart grows, he volunteers to carve the roast beast himself. But we never actually find out what the roast beast actually is. I mean, it's safe to assume that both the Who's and the Grinch are mammals, and the roast beast looks like one as well. The shape of the beast really isn't that different from the shape of the Who's or the Grinch himself, so this theory from Twitter user Everywhere is T claims Who's and the Grinch are in fact cannibals, and the roast beast is actually one of their own. Again, who would have thought? At number 8 we have hard of hearing. So this theory riffs off the genocide theory slightly and claims that the Who's are all hard of hearing due to how loud they always have to be. They're literally always so loud, always playing their instruments at like just the highest volume possible just to avoid extinction, but that obviously comes at a cost. They damage their hearing big time. That's why the Grinch was able to go from house to house and steal all the presents and not be caught by anyone other than Cindy Lou. And the only reason she heard him is because she's too young, so the hearing damage hasn't fully taken her hearing yet. Again, very dark. Again, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Filling on number 7 slot is bestiality. Now I feel like this one is pretty obvious, so someone just has to say it, so I'll be that person. The scene where the Grinch is in the mayor's house with Max and he literally pretends to be Martha and gets the mayor to kiss and lick Max's bumhole. Again, the only host that continues saying bumhole on top 10. Woohoo, that's my brand. Like he's just laughing about it and thinking it's all shits and gigs, even though Max is bloody traumatized and will most likely need years of dog therapy to get over this traumatic event, and the Grinch is like ha ha ha. He just continues doing it unapologetically, and so the Grinch who stole Christmas doesn't encourage or advocate bestiality, he just makes it look fun, which is also not good. We don't advocate that. Do not trust this green monster. Now at number 6 is who, what, when, where, and why. And now I'm like, but where's the how in that list? This theory comes from an anonymous person who noticed we've met the Who's various times. We're guessing the Grinch is a what, his dog is a when, but what on earth happened to where and why? Now the Who's know about where, so at least they know about them and their existence, but I doubt we'll ever see the wheres or hear from them, but that still leaves the floor open for why. This theory suggests that why may actually be the creator of all of this. Why is a godlike figure that spoke into existence this whole universe. Why are we here? Because of why. I kid you not, it's a proper theory I found on Reddit, I'm not making this up. Coming in at number 5 is The Purge. Now I feel like any movie, book, or show can somehow be linked to The Purge in one way or another, and I think that's hilarious. The universality and versatility of The Purge is actually a joke. This is a short and sweet theory, and it sort of links with the genocidal maniac theory, because when we see the Grinch entering Whoville in his brown cloak, he's wearing this creepy mask. Like he straight up looks like he's ready for the Who purge. That he's gonna be the head honcho of rich people ready to shoot the poor people, except the poor are the Who's, and their crime isn't poverty, it's liking Christmas. So did the purge really start in a Dr. Seuss book? Who knows? I don't. At number 4 is a what part 1. Now this theory comes from Reddit user Prince McElrath, who reminds us that in the movie Cindy asks her dad about the Grinch and he says he's more of a what than a who. Now flashback to the beginning of the movie to the scene where it explains that all babies descend from the sky in little baskets with umbrellas attached. Newsflash for all the under 13 users, that is not where babies come from. Ha ha ha. Here to corrupt your innocence, 2K19. Anyway, the Grinch's basket is all tattered and hole-filled and gross, and everyone just assumes that that's why he's grumpy his whole life. But what if all that was wrong? Now it's clear that the Grinch and the Who's are not the same species. What if the Grinch was in fact part of a race called the Whats from the other side of their world? What if his basket got blown off course and landed in the Who world, and that's how he ended up with these old ladies? So the Who is a what? Filling our number 3 slot is a what part 2. Now continuing on from that theory, why is literally everyone afraid of the Grinch? Now we see him go to school with all the adults in town, so clearly they know him, so why are they making him out to be this elusively scary monster? So this theory from the same redditor as before suggests it's not the Grinch the Who's are afraid of, it's the mayor. He must come from some sort of special family since he has a sidekick at like age 8, so what if his family just had a horrible ancient prejudice against the what? Not only that, but he's mad that the Grinch was able to thrive by himself, so he created all this propaganda against the Grinch in town so everyone would hate him and never accept him. Now at number 2 is the Who. So now that we've established that the Grinch is a what that got blown off course, we have to address the elephant in the room, and no, I'm not talking about Horton, and yes, I really did laugh when I was writing that joke out because god am I funny. Now this theory comes from Reddit user Rabid Flamingo, who said at the start of the movie they flash back to the Grinch's basket being blown in the wrong direction, which I mentioned before, but it also knocks some Who mum's baby's basket out of the way as well. So could it be that when the Grinch hit this other basket, this little Who got blown towards Wattsville and is now in the land of Watts, treated like an utter monster because of how much it loves Christmas within a species that hates it? See, like the Grinch is getting discriminated in Whoville, this little Who is getting discriminated in Wattsville. No one's having a good time. No one. The wind screwed everybody over that day. And finally, at number 1 is the religion. So this one was shared by Reddit user MLJ, who shared that the theory of the Grinch being a what, not a who, is great and all, but it still doesn't address why he hates Christmas. We know he gets bullied after he gives Martha May the angel, but even before the classroom party, he still shows a lot of animosity towards Santa and Christmas. So M suggests that perhaps the whats are a different religion to the whos, or they have some other entity or person that takes Santa Claus's place. He literally never says he doesn't believe in Santa Claus, he just says he doesn't like him. Maybe Santa even wronged the Watts at some point that would make his hatred pretty valid. So he isn't just a hateful creep, he was wronged. It's personal.
Starting us off at number 10 is the legend of the poisonous poinsettia. They are a very popular Christmas decoration because their leaves turn a bright red color when they bloom throughout their flowering period, which is November to March. It's safe to say that millions of them are sold each year, but you might think twice after I tell you about the urban legend that is linked to them. For decades now, there has been a dark myth that has people believing one poinsettia leaf can kill a human child. It has been a dire warning that goes around every Christmas, warning people not to bring these plants home if they have kids or pets. Some people believe that the plant actually contains a deadly poison. Apparently there has been a reported case that when a child even rubbed up against one of the plants, his face broke out into this brutal rash. So if anyone buys you one of these plants for Christmas, they are probably trying to kill you.
Alright, moving on, number 9, let's talk about mincemeat pies. These delicious looking desserts right here. Well, you might not actually be saying that for long. Well, the mincemeat pies has become a very popular Christmas dish, while legends has it that these desserts were invented back in the 16th century by cannibals. The recipe today calls for fruits, spices, cinnamon, nutmeg. There's also herbs in there, but let's just say that those weren't the only ingredients in this. Well, there was a time where these pies used to have meat in them, but it's rumored that that was stopped so people didn't have to guess, what type of meat was actually in these pies, because you never know if people tried to follow the old traditions and maybe slip in some human meat.
Sliding to number 8 spot, we have Belsnickel. Now, most people will think of The Office when they think of Belsnickel, but there's actually a weird and creepy legend tied to the character. It's an old German legend that started in the early 1800s that this old man in fur would deliver cakes, candies, and nuts to the good children. So he'd kind of act as if like he's Santa giving gifts to the kids on the nice list. Except he was some creepy old man and he would just carry around a whip and he would actually whip the bad children on the night of Christmas Eve. The character was based on an older German myth of a servant of Saint Nicholas. Apparently the figure is actually preserved in Pennsylvania Dutch communities and Brazilian German communities. Listen, everyone can believe what they want, but no man is coming up in my house and whipping my kids. If anyone's gonna do that, it's me. That's probably why I'm not a mom.
Number 7, like I was saying during the intro of this video, Santa Claus might actually be Satan in disguise. The devil is Santa in the flesh. I mean, how terrifying is that? Don't believe me? Well, how do you think that he got his name Santa? It seems pretty random, maybe it's not so random. It's just Satan rearranged. I mean, why is this man sliding down people's chimneys and breaking into people's houses? Isn't that trespassing? Santa literally has a naughty list so he can keep an eye on them. He gives naughty people useless coal just to mess with them so they feel bad about themselves. It's believed that Santa was inspired by characteristics of the devil. Number 6, Santa Claus might be very depressed, and he might be suicidal as well, and Christmas might come to an end. Santa every year has to fly around giving gifts to the nice kids. By Christmas time, he has to be as fat as possible because that's what society wants him to be, especially the kids. So Santa has to eat all day and all night, and he has to eat as many cookies as possible to train his body for Christmas time, because everyone leaves cookies for him. With all the strict rules and the same thing over and over again, Santa might be super depressed, and it's all our fault. Now, that is something hard to live with. Think about how much Santa has to go through just for our greediness. We want Santa to do it all, even the impossible. We make him eat all year round and then say, okay, now I want you to come down this chimney. Of course, it's the smallest chimney. Well, let's just hope Santa finds his happy place once again and nothing bad happens to him.
Halfway through the list at number 5 is Perchta. So I didn't know that there are evil spirits that come out around Christmas time. Apparently this channel is trying to ruin the holidays for me. There's an urban legend around a dual-gendered spirit named Perchta who will either appear as a beautiful woman or a haggard crone. I'm going to refer to it as a she for this one because I'm going to pretend that it is the beautiful woman. Apparently she would visit homes throughout the 12 days of Christmas and she would determine whether they have behaved all year. You know, the classic naughty and nice list. However, there is nothing classic about hers because if they were a good kid, she would leave them a silver coin. However, if they were bad, she would slit their bellies open, remove their guts, and stuff them with straw and pebbles. That is a little bit intense. I would literally be terrified of December if this was going on every year. However, this would make a really cool scary movie. I might be onto something here.
Number 4, candy canes were created to symbolize Jesus. The candy cane is in the shape of a J to stand for Jesus, and the red on the candy cane represents the blood of Christ. I mean, this is pretty intense. The cane is like wood, and wood is like the cross that Jesus was on. So candy canes aren't just symbolizing Jesus, it's actually symbolizing the moment he was nailed to the cross. If this is all true, it's pretty morbid to think about. I mean, I love candy canes and I don't think about all that stuff. But now I'm pretty upset with this one. I think my childhood is ruined, so let's move on. Let's see what Joss has in at number 3.
Cruising into number 3 is werewolves. I know what you're thinking. What do werewolves have to do with Christmas? If they are going to be linked to any kind of holiday, it's probably going to be Halloween. But I'm here to surprise you with the news that there's a dark myth behind werewolves and Christmas Day. The urban legend goes that anyone who was born on Christmas Day would turn into a werewolf. The 1961 movie called The Curse of the Werewolf explains the legend that being born on December 25th is mocking Jesus Christ, so you must be punished. But you don't turn into like an actual werewolf, you're a human who gets possessed and turns into this like werewolf-like monster thing. So you better plan out your pregnancies and hope your baby isn't born on Christmas Day. Taking over the number 2 spot is the legend of Grilla. What's more disturbing than a lady witch eating a bunch of children for pure entertainment? Absolutely nothing. The legend originated in Iceland, and the tale goes that a giant named Grilla has the ability to sense which children have misbehaved all year round. Apparently, she keeps a record of bad children, and come Christmas time, she comes down from her mountain and kidnaps them in a sack. Then she takes them back up to her mountain and she eats them. Like literally cannibal. Eats them, the hills of ice kind of stuff. Word on the street says that she will sometimes just eat them whole, or she will turn them into a stew. She is one Christmas visitor that you do not want to see.
Finally, number 1, Krampus might actually be real. Krampus is half goat, half demon creature.
Everybody, hold on to each other.
Krampus usually comes out during the Christmas season, and he punishes children who have misbehaved, so exactly like how Santa Claus does. Maybe Santa gives Krampus his naughty list. I mean, did you guys ever wonder what Santa does with his naughty list?